And welcome back to Bayou Time. Very, very pleased to have with us the police chief of the Houma Police Department. Now, depending on when you view this, he's the retiring police chief. And Dana Coleman joins us now. And Chief, I got to say, what a joy it has been for a news organization to work with you. You've just been so transparent, so part of the community. I want to say you set new trends in the community. So almost 8 years now, and you decide to step aside. Before we talk about some of the monumental things you've done, was this something you thought about for a while, or was it always a plan?
Well, it's always a plan. Okay, when you take on, and you accomplish certain things in life, such as becoming the chief of police. I'm gonna just use that as in topic of conversation. You always try to plan your exit. I looked at the 3 chiefs prior to me. No disrespect to them at all. And we don't even have to get into the story, but the what occurred with the 3 chiefs prior to me, and I did not want that to happen. Mm-hmm. I felt that I was at the top of my game. I felt that I accomplished a lot. Not only did I accomplish them, but with the help of the men and women within our agency, we've accomplished a lot. And just some other stuff that was going on in my life. My wife getting a promotion with her job, my kids finishing college and going on, to work in the medical field. I just felt that it was time. My wife supported me for the entire 28 years that I was with the police department. Mm-hmm. So it's time for us to come together now.
You did a lot of first. First African-American police chief. Well, I bet that set a good trend in the black community. What happened once you became police chief? Did it show hope for some of the young people growing up? What were some of the reactions that you got?
The reactions were positive. They were positive. Within the community that I grew up in, some of the elders within that community that watched me transition from a young boy into a man, they were excited, they were happy. But you also get that younger generation that really didn't know anything about Dana Coleman. The only thing they knew about Dana Coleman was that he donned a uniform. Mm-hmm. But throughout my tenure as police chief, one thing that I remember is there was this young kid who I was invited to a function at St. Lucie Daycare, and he was dressed just like I was in a police uniform, and he held this picture, and it was like career day or something, and he wanted to be Dana Coleman. Wow. And I mean that hit me to the core, and I'm like, wow. I mean, if you can just impact one, in your journey, then you've done an amazing job.
I always say nice guys finish last. Not in this case. You've been nice your whole life, and you've handled yourself with class. And I've asked you this before, but once again for the audience, where'd you get that from?
I got that from my parents. My mom and dad, they instilled some strong ethics, some strong morals, some strong values, and regardless of what circumstance that we had surrounding us in the neighborhood we grew up in, my parents always told us that we didn't have to be the topic of that environment. Don't let that environment define you. Mm-hmm. You come out of that environment and you set your own legacy.
Mm-hmm. But you went in, you had a plan. It didn't take long for people to gain respect for you. It happened. I remember the first drug bust we went on with you guys. We're in the room, got the cameras rolling, and you gather everybody together, hold hands, and lead off with a prayer. I have never seen that in all my years at HTV, the police chief leading in a prayer with other police officers. You were naturally born to do that.
Well, once again, I give all glory and honor to God first. Mm-hmm. My parents instilled prayer in us at a young age. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when I do my talks, I tell people, you know, you look at me in this shiny uniform, you look at me with this prestige position, but I tell them, I say, I grew up on drugs. And they look at me like, drugs? I say, yeah, I was addicted to drugs. And they like, you're the police chief, how are you addicted to drugs? I say, my parents drugged me to church. They drugged me to Sunday school. Yeah. They drugged me to prayer service. They drugged me to piano lessons. They drugged me to football practice, basketball practice. They drugged me to all those different places, and their motto was, an idle mind was a devil's workshop. So if you had idle time to just sit idle, then you're going to probably get into something that's negative. So they believe to keep us active in all things. We gave glory to God. We prayed about it. And I actually didn't know how that was going to go whenever we had all those officers in that training room. But, you know, most of them knew that, you know, I'm a strong believer in my faith. So whenever I, you know, got them together and asked them to lead in prayer, to pray for their safety as well as those that we were going to look for, it came over great. It came over great. It made me feel great as well.
So many positive things. Every time we cover, look, it could have been the worst story. Could have been, and you had some tragic stories, young children and everything else, but the way you handled yourself was unbelievable. I got to say that from a news perspective. The things that you've accomplished as police chief, let's talk about a few of them. I already know that you're not going to take credit, that you're going to give it to a lot of your officers, which a good leader does. But let's talk about what did the department do under your management?
The first thing coming in as police chief in 2015 that we accomplished was unity. Prior to me being appointed as police chief, I'm proud to say it, and I'm not ashamed to say it, that at one point in my career that I thought about resigning from the police department. Our department was in the news media often. There was tension within our agency. And at one point, I was in the process of typing up a resignation letter. And there was a young man within our department, and you all will meet him later, that came into my office and he saw me typing up this resignation letter. He was trying to have a conversation with me, and I wasn't paying him no attention at all. So he was like, "What are you doing?" Still didn't answer him. He came around and he saw that I was typing up a resignation letter, and he was like, "Oh no, this can't happen." He said, "Stop, you can't do this." He said, "Because we are looking for some new leadership within this department, and we believe you can take us to that next level." Right then I stopped, I looked at him, and not long after that, our police chief at the time, which was Chief Todd Duplantis, we went to active shooter training, and we learned that he was resigning. We didn't know anything about what led up to the resignation. And I mean, an abundance of men and women within our department, they came to me and they said, "We think you should be our next leader." And I was like, whew. I said, that's a lot. That's a lot to digest right now. At the time, I was a lieutenant over our detective bureau. But just to have the support of, you know, several men and women within our agency at that point, I mean, that was great.
You know,
so I would say unity was the first thing.
And I would agree with you, because I covered many stories. Some weren't so pretty with Houma Police over the years, but I've never had a scandalous story.
Yes, sir.
In 7.5 years. That's incredible.
Yes, sir.
But it's not just luck.
No, iron sharpens iron. Whenever you make a decision within a department, you don't make that decision just based off of your own thoughts, your own ideas. It's collective decisions, because when you're in a leadership position and you're making decisions, that just don't affect you. It affects everyone that wears that same uniform. Not only those that wear that uniform, but you have to be strategic on decisions you make, because those that wear different uniforms, those decisions can affect them as well. So you have to be strategic, you have to be precise, and it's okay to listen at the opinions of others.
Is there anyone, I see leaders sometimes who disagree and they're pretty boisterous about it. Is there anyone you can't get along with?
I try to get along with everybody. Now, I'm gonna just say, the road hasn't been easy. I've been in some settings, not at the police department, but I've been in some settings to where there have been some disagreements. But I always try to encourage myself that even though I may have a disagreement with someone, that whenever we leave it at the table. You leave that disagreement at the table. And when you make that decision, you also make that decision for all. You know, so I try to leave those disagreements at the table because you're not going to agree on everything.
Right.
We don't live in a perfect world.
That's right. When you started the police force years ago, we were doing the beat. We were running into crack, cocaine, marijuana, every now and then cocaine. Now it's morphed into heroin, fentanyl, death from all this. It's changed quite a bit, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. It has changed quite a bit.
What kind of stress does that put on a department to have to deal with that every day?
We talked about marijuana. We talked about cocaine. We talked about other various drugs, heroin. But when you get into the fentanyl is something that's extremely dangerous because we've seen events across America where officers themselves are conducting their daily operations and has accidental exposure to these to fentanyl, and it affects them where they can lose their lives. So you have officers that are carrying fentanyl not only for those who overdose, but in the event an officer gets an accidental exposure with fentanyl, they can actually render aid to that officer as well. So it's getting kind of scary because normally you deal with your addicts with the narcotics, but you can also have an accidental exposure with one of your personnel too.
I've sort of watched you, I guess I've had the luxury on this desk or in this job of, seeing all the parish presidents of past. Go to Bobby Lyons, there was mayors before that. But sort of watched the way you worked through government. A lot of people hate the governmental process, but I watch you sort of endear yourself to it, and I know you and administration, two administrations that you dealt with. How was working with government for you as chief?
Well, I was appointed by Michel Claudet in 15. I only had like 4 months to work with Mr. Claudet. But in 2015, when Mr. Gardy took over, I had an opportunity to work with him for his entire tenure as parish president. And I can just say that tenure was amazing. When Mr. Gardy came in, first thing he did was held a meeting with his directors. He wanted to get to know each of us. So when I held my meeting with him, the conversation that I had with him, I said, Mr. Gardy, I said, one thing that I'm gonna tell you as the police chief of our department is that I will not come to you for wants. I say, if I come to you, Mr. Gardy, it's gonna be for a need for our police department. And he sat back and I said, yeah, I want a Cadillac Escalade, but is that a need?
Right.
And he said, Chief Coleman, he said, I'm gonna just tell you this. He said, I don't know law enforcement, I know levies. He said, I've inquired about you to some people, and he said, everyone has something good to say, and I look forward to working with you. And I can just say, under the leadership of Parish President Dove, we've accomplished a lot within our department. We've accomplished a $3 hour raise recently. We've accomplished, that was a point where the relationship with law enforcement in the community was fractured after all the stuff that was going on.
There was threats of riot.
Correct. There was threats of riots and stuff taking place. I went to Mr. Dove and I told him, I said, we need some riot gear just in case, that happens in our backyard. And he took care of us. There was some serious incidents that took place within our tenure. And went to him again, told him we needed a command post. And once again, Mr. Dove and his administration stepped up, got us a command post. Under his leadership as parish president and mine as police chief, we've had multiple officer-involved shootings. Thank God that our officer-involved shootings were, were good on our part.
Right.
But he supported us in that. We went to him again and asked him for a Bearcat. He's in the process of getting us a Bearcat. Unfortunately, it takes a little while, but he stepped up again and supplying us with a need. Protective gear, active shooters taking place across America. He came to us and he wanted to know, what can he do to better protect these police officers? So we asked him for better protective gear. Once again, parish government stepped up again. So when you talk about accomplishments, you may get credit for them, and the outside entities may look and say, well, Chief Coleman accomplished a lot. But I'm a strong believer in teamwork.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have been able to accomplish anything at all if it wasn't for the leadership within our department partnering with the leadership within parish government.
Well said. We've got about 3 minutes left. Where are you going from here? You're too young to retire.
Starting March 6th, I'll be taking a job with the Louisiana Department of Justice, working with the Attorney General's office.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What role will you have?
Public corruption.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I know you'll make a lot of gains and ground on that.
Yes, sir. I'm excited.
Congratulations.
I'm excited about this new endeavor.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've accomplished a lot within our department. And I just wanted to pass the torch. I wanted to pass the torch while I'm at the top of my game.
And a young man at that. Let me ask you, 2 minutes left. A lot of good candidates.
Yes.
For police chief. You know them all, obviously. And decisions had to be made. And test scores came into play. All kind of things came into play. Travis Terrio was appointed by the parish president. Any words of advice for the new incoming chief, Travis Terrio?
I had some conversations with him when I heard he was appointed for the position. I told Travis, incoming chief Travis Terrio, I wanted to be one of the first ones to say it. But I explained to Chief Travis Terrio that I'm going to hand the keys to the car to him. I'm going to wash it, clean it, dress it up, hand it to him, and I just asked him to take care of it. And Travis and I worked together on many things. We worked together on a serial killer. We've worked together on many investigations in the Detective Bureau. No disrespect to any of the other candidates. If he would have picked any one, they would have made a great chief. I've worked with each and every one of them. And no disrespect to them, but Travis Terrio is a great pick. And I'm looking forward to him accomplishing some great things as well, along with parish administration.
Chief, I want to thank you for the time you put in. You've been a class act, and I have no doubt in my mind when you go to the Attorney General's office, it's going to be Attorney General 1, everybody else 0. You're going to step up. Perfect department for you, and just promise us you'll come by and visit us every now and then.
Houma will always hold a special place in my heart.
Yeah. Chief,
yes, sir.
Congratulations, and job well done. And Travis has some big shoes to fill.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. There you have it.
Yes, sir.
Our police chief, until the time comes, depending on when you're watching this, but he's done a great job, great service to us here in Houma, and we wish him well. We'll take a break. When we come back, we have a lot more. Plus, in the next few days, you'll see the new police chief. He'll be on the desk with me also. Don't go away.